Անհորի որդվոյի ոգին սրբո ամեն իմաստություն հոր Հիսուս դուր ինձ իմաստություն սփարիս խորել խոսել եւ կործել առաջի քո ամենայն ժամ իջար փանից խորութոց կործոց բրգյազիս եւ օրմյակո արածոց եւ ինձ բազմամեղիցս amen. Well, it's great to see everybody at Bible study, and just another reminder of the love that our Armenian community has for the Bible. And there's 5 people come, but I appreciate the 5 people. This year, we decided that we're going to be talking about healing and peace. And so this is the topic for our year, and we always do like a single topic that we move on. And so last week what we talked about was the place of the Bible in our lives and how it is interpreted. And this week we're going to actually go into some of the material that has to do with healing. So what I thought we'd do is we would start off with some traditional ideas of what healing is. Like what I asked you when we left last week, I said, think about healing. What does it mean to you? That was your homework. Funny, didn't you? Kind of good homework admission.
I think healing with me is healing about yourself when you forgive somebody. That's how I see it. If I'm forgiving somebody, I'm healing myself. In the process of bringing peace within myself.
So, you use the word forgiving. It's
a prerequisite for healing.
Okay. Now that's pretty complicated. So okay, because usually when you think of healing, you think, I cut myself and it heals. So how does the forgiveness work? How does relationship?
It's a hard goal.
Okay, closing the word. All right, anybody else? Anything else about healing?
Well, the physical was obvious. Okay.
Okay, what comes to your mind?
Well, people with terminal illnesses.
Okay.
All right. How they deal with it. It's not always being cured, but how they deal with it.
No, that's interesting.
That's
okay.
A healing process.
So, would you say that in physical illness, healing would be curing, but what you're saying is how we deal with it is also important. How we deal with it, attitude. Okay, that's interesting. And I guess in the attitude, we would also that would come into the whole idea of forgiveness. Anybody else? You.
I think strong faith would be one. And then
strong faith?
Yeah, strong faith would be one. And then I think control yourself.
Strong faith will be, well, like Sonia said, the prerequisite. Strong faith would also go in there. But when I think of healing, anybody else?
It's probably doing like this, band-aiding it.
Band-aiding, okay. And what happens when let's just be very superficial. In other words, let's look at the very primitive idea of healing. What is, you cut your hand.
And somebody zaps you from above and it's healed.
It's healed. Or how about if somebody doesn't zap you? We still heal, right?
Right.
The two sides come together, and then what's left? Scar. What's the scar? Reminder of what happened. Okay. So healing is there's a problem.
It's a lesson also.
Problem, cure, and then a scar, and you said it perfectly. The scar is the lesson. Okay? So, when you're a child, you look at the lesson over here and you say, and mom tells you, Minev, That's what moms do, right? They tell you,
Ufuk
look what,
kıllar.
ufuk, right, that's it. Okay, now what do you think religion is? It's the same thing. Skushavir ufufkalas. That's it. That's what the thing is. See, we make it very complicated, but mommy's had it perfectly. Skushavir ufufkalas. I love that. We don't want to be ufuf. So if you don't want to be ufuf, what do you want to be? You want to be healed. And that is actually the process of finding that peace. So what I thought we'd do tonight is we'd look at some of the examples that come out of the Bible, and as we're developing throughout the year, we'll be talking about healing the physical. I think that's important. I think people think that it's impossible. And people think it's miracle. Actually, it's more than miracle when people get healed. And there are ways of healing. I think we need to combine faith and all of our understanding of the physical being. When you put it all together, you get some real peace and answer. Anyway, that's coming down the line. I promise we're going to be talking about that. But for right now, I thought we'd just look at some of the examples that come out of the Bible. So we're going to start off from Exodus chapter 4, where there's a story of one of God's servants named Moses. And an interesting story. Chapter 4. Assim.
Oh, that's the white, because I couldn't find the little whitey.
Ooh, thank you.
It works, right?
Yeah.
There's a Christmas too.
So we put the push push next to the push.
We have our own language.
The Solomon. That's where you people on the internet. There's this tribe here in Glendale. All right.
Made up word.
Exodus. Exodus is in the Old Testament. It's the second book. And it describes exit. In Armenian, it means the exit. The people are leaving. They're leaving their bondage. They were held in bondage, and now they're leaving. So we're looking at this story. Let's look at chapter 4 from the beginning. Then Moses answered. He's talking to God over here. He says, "Behold, they will not believe me or listen to my voice." Actually, you know what? Let me preface this, what happened. If you look at verse 13 of the chapter before, chapter 3, verse 13, Moses said to God, "If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' they will ask, 'What is his name?' What shall I say to them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am." Now this sounds like a puzzle, but actually that's God's name. I am who I am. Yes, yeah. And that's why in Armenian we use the letter E, which you see on the top of our altars all the time. It means God is. I am. He says, I am. That word in Hebrew is not to be pronounced. It comes out like this, and a lot of times biblical scholars believe that it was pronounced like this. But it wasn't pronounced. It was never pronounced. Yahweh. It was because you don't pronounce the name of God. This is his name. I am. And this Yahweh, of course, is where the word Jehovah comes from. Yehovah, Yahweh, Yehovah. That's where all that language is. Okay? So Moses and God are in this relationship, and Moses is saying, People aren't going to listen to me. They're going to ask me who I am, everything. So now, this is a different discussion. I just wanted to give you this as the preface, because now we're seeing what happens. Chapter 4. Moses answered, "Behold, they will not believe me or listen to my voice, for they will say, 'The Lord did not appear to you.'" So Moses is saying, if I go to the people, they're not going to believe me. What do I say then? "The Lord did not appear to you." The Lord said to Moses, "What is that in your hand?" He said, "A rod." And he said to him, "Cast it on the ground." So he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from it. But the Lord said to Moses, "Put out your hand and take it by the tail." So he put out his hand and caught the serpent. He caught it in his hand. And it became a rod in his hand. So he picked up the serpent, and all of a sudden it became a rod in his hand. Okay? "That they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you." Okay? So he says, look at it. This is a piece of wood. You threw it on the floor, it became a snake. Pick it up, it becomes a rod. The people will now believe you. Now listen, he says, this, we're going to continue over here. "Again the Lord said to him, put your hand into your bosom." I guess it's over here somewhere. It's a good thing we're checking these things. Maybe it's better. Okay. "Put your hand in your bosom," it says. So Moses puts his hand in his bosom like that. And he put his hand in his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous, as white as snow. You know what leprosy is? It's like the skin falling off, you know. It's white as snow. Jed Mug. Then God said to him, "Put your hand back into your bosom." And he put his hand back into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. So we're seeing this little miracle, which is about healing, okay? This is the healing process. Look, it's leprous, now it's okay. "If they will not believe you," God said, "or heed the first sign, they may believe the latter sign. If they will not believe even these two signs, or heed your voice, you shall take some water from the Nile and pour it upon the dry ground, and the water which you shall take from the Nile will become blood upon the dry ground." Wow. Okay, so Moses is saying, I need a way to prove to the people that you are God. God says, I'm going to give you these miracles. Take the stick. Go out there and look at your hand. Show them that. Take the water from the Nile. But Moses said to God, "Oh my Lord, I am not eloquent, either heretofore or since thou hast spoken to thy servant." See, when Moses talks to God, he talks in Old English. He talks thy and those and everything. They're tongue twisters. "But I am slow of speech and of tongue." Then the Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth?" Now remember this. This is very important right here. Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him dumb or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you with what you shall speak. But he said, "Oh Lord, send, I pray, some other person." Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, "Is there not Aaron your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well, and behold, he is coming out to meet you." So it goes on and everything. Now, what did I want you to say? Did anybody pick up? What do you suppose, why this passage here? Moses needs a miracle to prove who God is. And the miracle that he's showing happens to be the healing. Now, very, very important, because healing becomes a sign or a miracle. In other words, if I could show that you are sick and now you're well, then that will be a point of the miracle, and that will make you believe in God. Then, but look at the next sentence. God says, did I not create your mouth and your tongue and your eyes? If the God gave you mouth, gave you speaking, gave you hearing, gave you sight, He's also the one who didn't give it to you. This is where everything starts. Do you understand? When I tell you that there's such a big difference between Jesus' message and the Old Testament, I'm talking about this. They want you to... This is very dangerous stuff. This is very dangerous. Because you get people who start believing that God causes pain. God is the one who causes suffering in this world. And He's saying it right here. This is where this comes from, okay? And this is why I tell you, and I repeat again, Christianity is revolutionary. Christ said, don't look at God, look at the surroundings. That's like what we're doing right now. We're polluting our rivers. We're putting every kind of disease in those rivers, and those fish are coming out with 3 eyeballs. They're coming out with their guts and saying, oh, God wanted a 3-eyed fish. No, He doesn't. We're polluting the earth. Who's at fault over here? See, but what happens is when you start reading things like this is where, look at, where is it? Verse 10 and following. It says, oh my Lord, no, excuse me. Verse 11, He says, who has made man's mouth? Who made him dumb or deaf or seeing or blind? In other words, God has made them. Well, what do you expect? And me as a priest, do you know how many times I've seen people who come over here that had my kid can't talk. 5 years old, 6 years old. Have you gone to a doctor? No. No, stop. We have problems over here, you know. There's real issues over here. And we have to start getting out of this habit that God, and we're going to see that tonight. Yes.
Is it too much having faith in God? Like everything they're dumping on God, you know?
Well, because they're having a wrong faith in God. They're believing in something that the Old Testament, something that the Jews were talking about, and when Jesus came, He said that's not about it. In fact, I was going to wait for later, but let me open that place.
It's placing blame.
Placing blame.
What about this? What if you don't think that being deaf or blind is necessarily something bad? I know deaf people who think that their deafness is a blessing. So.
And what was that? That was attitude, right? That's attitude. I agree with you. It is a blessing. But that's your attitude. That's when you've got something and you say, okay, this is what I have in life. That's responsibility. This is what I have right now. You know, and it's as simple as this. I have blue right now. I'm going to use blue, you know. And somebody said, well, I can't see it. It's black. Well, too bad. This is what I have, and this is the blessing. And then all of a sudden you realize that the one person that needed to see this is colorblind and couldn't see this, and so you say, oh, that's why they had blue. And in the same way, it's a blessing. I can't hear. I didn't, you know, if I was deaf, I wouldn't hear all the gossip in the world, right? That's a blessing, right?
How much times we heard people say, why did God allow the Armenians to suffer?
Yeah. The Armenians are, how come I'm suffering? Why me, oh Lord? Why me? Why didn't it happen to somebody else? Well, why didn't it? Do you think that you're the only person? Well, let's see what, and we're going to contrast this. We just read what we read in the Old Testament. I'm going to challenge you to look and see what did Jesus say to these things. Because Jesus came and gave us a revolutionary, you see, revolution. What is revolution? Revolve. Where do you, if you revolve, where do you go?
You go all the way
You go around, you get back to the same place. Jesus came and he said, okay, you've got all this, but you got everything wrong. I'm going to take you around and get back to the beginning and see that there's a different way of looking, an attitude. Let's take a different look at the world. And you're going to see that the world is a beautiful place. It's not a place where a big chess game, shachmat, right? God is sitting up there. Let's move this guy over here. The king's going to go. Tomorrow he's going to do, well, okay, let's put the queen over here. God's not playing chess with us. He's given us a life. He's given us beautiful things. So what does Jesus say? Let's look at Luke chapter 13. Now we're going to go to New Testament, something new. And to me, it's the Testament. Chapter 13, okay? I know most of you are just following, so I'll just go ahead and read it. There were some present at the very time who told him of the Galilean whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifice. Now, what is this? This was an event that took place at the time that Jesus was around. We can compare it to some big tragedy. What was a few weeks ago? There was those, no, a few months ago, excuse me. There was those 3 poor girls who were held captive for 10 years. The man raped them for 10 years. Horrible, horrible, horrible tragedy. So we don't know what happened here at the Galileans, but you could imagine somebody came up to Jesus and said, what about those 3 girls? Okay? That were thing. And Jesus says, do you suppose that those people were worse sinners than the others because they suffered thus? See, this is what happens. People start believing that because of my sins, because I am a bad person, God is saying, let's go get this guy. Okay? Jesus says, do you think that he is a worse person than you because he suffered those things? I tell you, Jesus says it right here, I tell you, are you ready for what he's going to say? No. Let's write that in red. No. That's not the reason. No. But unless you repent, you will be likewise. Or those 18 upon whose the tower of Siloam fell and killed them. So there was a big tower and it fell. Like last week, what at Philippines, I mentioned, there was a big earthquake. 500 people died. So people will say, Jesus, what about those people? 500 people died. Jesus would say, do you think that they were worse sinners than you? He says that, and all the people in Jerusalem, I tell you, no. Unless you repent, you will be likewise perish. In other words, he's saying that all of you are susceptible to these things. It can happen to everybody. And it does happen to everybody. But it's how do you heal after that thing? If you start believing that God causes pain, then your only answer is to look at God. But if you realize that the pain in this world, the suffering in this world, is because of us, and because of the circumstances, then you realize that we also have to be part of the solution. 2 months ago, on the moon, a meteor hit it. And there was a big, big crash. Big crater. I'm sure many of you heard about it. When a meteor hits the moon, it hits and big dust comes up and it hits. Now, do you know the Earth gets meteors all the time, right? That's what we call shooting stars. But what do we have around the Earth? What do we have around the Earth? Atmosphere. So when that meteor comes, it dies and it never gets to us. Check. You all know this, right? Okay, so the meteor hits the moon because there is no atmosphere and it makes a big, big circle, make destruction. When it hits the earth, the atmosphere makes it go away, right? So thank you that we have atmosphere. Huh? Well, what is atmosphere? Because of atmosphere, what do we have? We have storms. We have floods. We have hurricanes. Okay, now take your pick. You can have hurricanes, storms, floods, plus you can breathe by having oxygen, or you can live over here, and every time a stone hits you, boom, you're killed. All right, in other words, what am I saying? This is the way life is. We have certain things in life. We have a physical body. Guess what? Physical body does not go forever. At some point it ends. And it's dependent on a lot of things. It's dependent on how you take care of it. It's dependent on the place you live. And it's dependent on what? Genes. Some people are lucky. Grandma, grandpa lived to 100 years old. Guess what? You're going to make it. You're going to make it to 90. You're going to make it to 100. Guess what? Grandma and grandpa, they didn't make it too much. You've got to start looking elsewhere. You've got to start thinking about different things. It's true. Okay, these are the three things. There's the genes, the way you were born. There's how you take care of yourself. And, of course, your environment. If you go live in a tropical rainforest, there's a chance that, you know what, the spiders are going to come and eat you. They're going to bite you, and there's poisonous spiders. If you go into a jungle and the tiger comes and he hits you, right? Why? Because if you're in a jungle, what is there in the jungle? There's tigers. So what are you going to say? Why did God do this? No. Get out of the jungle. You don't want to be with tigers? Get out of the jungle. You want to live on planet Earth? Then get off the planet Moon. In other words, we have to start thinking about realistic solutions. Because here's the bottom line. I don't believe Jesus lies. I don't think that the Bible lies. I don't think that God lies. So if he doesn't lie, there's truth in this. The stories that come to us have to make real sense for people. The reason why there's only 10 of us tonight or something is because most people see the Bible and they say, it has nothing to do with real life. It has everything to do with real life. It means something. The stories in the Bible are the stories of how you deal with life. It's the healing problem. You have cancer. You have eye disease. You have hearing disease. You have physical diseases. Guess what? There are ways of overcoming it. There is healing in the world. And that healing is what Jesus did. When we look at the stories, we're going to look at 3 different stories. It comes to us from the book of Mark. We're going to look at 3 different types of healing that take place. And this is going to put us into the mood for healing right now. How are we doing on time? This is one of the evangelists of the New Testament. Mark chapter 5. We're going to read 3 different stories in here. We're going to read about demonic healing, about a girl being restored, and about a woman being healed. I want you to just listen to it, and then later we'll talk about the different aspects of healing, okay? They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus had come out of the boat, there met him out of the tombs of men with an unclean spirit, who lived among the tombs. And no one could bind him anymore, even with a chain, for he had often been bound with fetters and chains, but the chains he wrenched apart, and the fetters he broke to pieces, and no one had strength to subdue him. So this is a man who is just going crazy. He's breaking the chains, breaking the bolts. He's under what they're saying, an unclean spirit. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountain, he was always crying out and bruising himself with stones. It was so bad that he was self-abused too. He was healing himself. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshipped him. Wow. And crying out with a loud voice, he said, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." For he had said to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." So again, he's turning to Jesus, Son of God, "Do not torment me." For he had said to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Okay, many people, Legion. And he begged him eagerly not to send them out of the country. In other words, the spirits. They knew Jesus' power. Now a great herd of swine was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him, "Send us to the swine, let us enter them." So he gave them leave, and the unclean spirits came out and entered the swine, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and were drowned in the sea. These poor little piggies were all killed out there, okay? The herdsmen fled and told it in the city and in the country, and people came to see what it was that had happened. And they came to Jesus and saw the demonic sitting there, clothed, and in his right hand the man who had the legion, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it told what had happened to the demonic and to the swine, and they began to beg Jesus to depart from their neighborhood. And as he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed with the demons begged him that he might be with him. But he refused and said to him, "Go home to your friends, tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for them, and all the men marveled. Okay, this is a small little story. The man has many, many demons inside of him. Jesus throws the demons out. They go into the pigs. The pigs die. The people get upset. Isn't that interesting? The people say to Jesus, "Get out of our neighborhood. We don't want that." What does that tell you? Why do you suppose the people said, I mean, he did something good. Why do you suppose the people said, "Get out"? It's interesting, Chet. Fear. Do you think people are happy with some of their problems? It's easier.
It's like they just find comfort in whatever they know.
That's right. They find comfort, and Jesus was definitely making them uncomfortable, wasn't he? Okay, so Jesus goes out, and this man says, "Hey, I want to go with you." And Jesus says, "No." He says, "Go and tell your people what God has done for you and the mercy of God." That's one story. Okay, we read this in Mark 5. Demonic possession. The demons are in him. Now, until today, believe it or not, there's still a lot of people who believe in this. In fact, we in the church have what is called the exorcism. And there are times where you cannot explain things, and you say that, okay, it must be demonic possession. It must be the demons. And you expel them. You move them away. But what does it require? It requires for you to have this kind of great faith. And that faith comes to us, of all places, from the evil one. Do you see what the demons were saying? They recognized Jesus. This is one of the things that people forget, that evil understands. When we're talking about healing, we have to realize that the healing is a two-way street. You want to be healed, but the wound inside of you also recognizes that it wants to be healed. Okay? Now, of course, we're not talking about the superficial ones. Until today, we in our church, just so you know, it's called the service of exorcism is a service for lusnod. Lusnod is, in English, it's exactly the same word. Lunatic. Luna, lusin, lusnod. So the service of exorcism is actually to get away what we call the lunatics. In other words, getting away things. Because this was thought about, this is where the fables come from, the werewolves, about the full moons and everything. The moon has its cycles, and, think about the word hysteria. Women have hysterectomies, the whole thing of 28-day cycles, the moon is on a cycle. So all these things are connected to one another, and they get mixed up. Sometimes people get mixed up in looking at these and trying to find a little bit more than what there should be. Now, before I go on to the punchline of this, I want to look at the other stories too, okay? So we're going to continue from verse 21, okay? This is number 2 now. And Jesus had crossed again in a boat to the other side. A great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet. And he besought him, saying, My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be made well and live. And he went with him. And the great crowd followed him and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had had flow of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus, and came up behind him in the crowd, and touched his garment. For she said, If I touch even his garments, I shall be made well. And immediately the hemorrhage ceased, and she felt in her body that she was healed. She felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone forth from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, Who touched my garments? And his disciples said to him, You see the crowd pressing about you, and yet you say, Who touched me? And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had been done to her, came in fear, trembling, and fell before him, and told him the truth. And he said to her, Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. Okay, so Jesus is going somewhere. Meanwhile, this woman comes, touches him. He feels the power going out of him. But what does Jesus turn around and say to her? It's your faith. It's your faith that has healed you. While he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house. Remember, the ruler said, Please come and see my daughter. The ruler's house, someone came and said, Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further? But ignoring what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, Do not fear, only believe. And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. When they came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, he saw a tumult, and people weeping and wailing loudly. And when he had entered, he said to them, Why do you make a tumult and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping. And they laughed at him. So imagine this. You go to somebody's house, and everybody's crying because there's a death in the family. And Jesus says, No, she's just sleeping. You can imagine. They were pretty upset. Okay? And they laughed at him. And he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him, and went in where the child was. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, Talitha kumi, which means, little girl, I say to you, arise. And immediately the girl got up and walked. She was 12 years old, and they were immediately overcome with amazement. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. Now, 3 different miracles. The first one was healings, let's say. The first one was the legion. After it happened, what does Jesus say? Go and tell everybody about it. This one, what does he say? Shh, don't tell anybody about it. What's the difference? What's the difference? Why no publicity on this one? Look what he says before, okay? When he says, your daughter is not dead. Excuse me, the servant said, your daughter is dead, do not trouble the teacher. What does it say Jesus did? Jesus ignored what they said. Jesus knew that she was alive. So now it's very important in healing to know who the enemy is, to know what the problem is, and not doubt it. See, Jesus didn't say, oh, really? Wait a minute, did you check her pulse? Excuse me, are you sure that she's... No, he knew. He ignored them. And this is very important. People will come and try to tell you in your life you have problems. You can listen. You can argue with them too. Or you could ignore them. If you ignore them, what do? You're on the road to healing. Because you have to be confident. Jesus was totally confident in what was going on over there. In fact, so much so that he didn't even know that somebody had drained him, right? All of a sudden somebody just came and touched him. Woo! The energy is sucked out of him, right? And he goes, somebody touched me. That's confidence, where you don't even realize how great you are. That's pretty big time over there. But these are all feelings and attitudes that connect us with the healing process. So the first one was the demons, the second one was the woman, and the third one was the little girl. In each of these cases, we see that Jesus is doing what? Healing is leading to what? There's a word I'm looking for. He definitely brings peace, yes. Excuse me? Leading to faith. The word I'm looking for is restoring. He's bringing people back to the original situation. Remember what I said? What is revolution? Going around. And then you get back here. Do you remember the first story that we read? Moses in the wilderness, Exodus. Okay, the beginning of time. We got it wrong the first time. Jesus is saying, hey, look, I'm going to restore not only these people, these 3 stories, but I'm going to restore the way we're looking at life, the way we understand ourselves, the harmony that we have, which will lead to peace. Okay, see, eventually that's the bottom line. I think that everybody has peace, and there's a word in science that they use for that peace. It's called equilibrium. Equilibrium is the state that everything is okay, peaceful. And the most noted one is water, right? I don't know if you could see this, but there's water. If I hold it like this, it's at equilibrium. In other words, it's got from here to here, it's at the same water line. If I go like this, it's off. If I go like this, it's off. That's what the world is. That's what
Congress is.
That's what? Congress is like that. That's what what do you call it? Illnesses. That's what diseases. You're off of equilibrium. You're not equal. And so things go wrong. And there are many reasons why things go wrong. There are many reasons why there's illnesses. I said those three things, right? You don't take care of yourself. Your environment around you, and then some of it is genes. Some of it, unfortunately, you're born that way. That's the gene process. And it's not that God says, well, let's go and see what we're going to do, but that's part of the natural selection. We don't live in a world where there's no atmosphere, so rocks hit us, we're safe. But there's hurricanes, okay? Now, do you want a world where there's goodness in it? Okay, you got to take the good with the bad. You've got to take that. And that's why we put sugar in our coffee, right? Well, there's shableria.
What I find touching is during the procession, the first procession, when the banner is leading the procession, how people reach out to it and just caress it or kiss it. And it's like they want
Exactly.
that comfort.
There's a comfort to be able to touch. And that's why it's very important. I don't know how many of you have been following the podcast this last few weeks. We've been talking about the box, especially because we're talking about the church leadership. And sometimes it's very easy, especially last few years, you hear people who say, I'm a Christian, but I don't need the church. You need the box. You need the box. It's like a cup of coffee. You can't drink a cup of coffee without a cup. What is coffee? You put it on your hand, you burn yourself, it goes through your hand, you can't even get it in your mouth. You need the cup. There has to be a form. The same way, Jesus came into the world, and the procession is exactly that. He comes into the world and he goes around. Jesus came in a real form. He wasn't a ghost. That's why we say in the Havadam, he wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a ghost that just came and thing. No, he was very real. It was you touched him, and basically that box is important. You can think outside of the box, but you really can't survive without the box. It's an important part of it. So in our journey that we're looking at healing and eventually at peace, these are the stories that I wanted to share with you today. And if there's any questions, this would be a time to ask. Or any discussion.
The box is like an anchor.
Mm-hmm.
That's all, I feel.
Holds us down
Yeah.
in the world. Yeah, that's true.
You can waver, this and that, but you need an anchor to come back.
Exactly. I think, well, you know what? That's what business is too, Che? Business is an organizing mechanism. Some people say that the church shouldn't be a business. You know why they say that? Because they think business is just to make money. No, business is not making money. Business is organization. Okay? You need organization. You can't just be out there. The business means that you have a chairman, you have a secretary. Who remembers these things? How do you pay this electricity, Well, you need a checking account. You need a bookkeeper to do that, okay? Does this mean it's bad? No, it just means it's grounded. It's got something over here. And it's a place where people can congregate. People could come and they feel part of it. So I know when people say the church shouldn't be a business, I know what they're thinking. They're thinking it shouldn't, and I agree with them, it shouldn't be a business. But it should be a business in its organization.
It's not a profit-making business.
It's not a profit-making business.
It's a business, but not a profit-making.
That's a good way of saying it, yes. Non-profit. Anything else? There are churches that are profit-making businesses.
There, watch television.
Oh, just go down Central, yeah.
Oh, yeah, go down there and look at it.
Anyway, anything else? Yes.
Someone brought it to my attention, I don't know how to answer it. We say that God is good, right? God is nothing but the good. God is good, period. But then, when we read all these stories, how God has inflicted pain on Moses and his people and so on. How do we explain that?
Yeah, that's exactly. Thank you, Sonny, because that will bring us right to where we began. It'll bring us full circle. And that's what I need to share with you. And I used to hide behind this, but hide because I wasn't certain of it, but I'm very certain of it right now.
They're telling that, okay, you're saying this thing, but then it looks like God is like violence, How can you say that?
Old Testament, yes. New Testament, no.
But is it the same God we're talking about?
No.
No.
That's what I want to share with you.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is the same God when you look at New Testament, Old Testament, but no in the understanding. The way people are taking it, the way people are understanding it, and that's what Jesus was saying it. He's saying it's the same God, but you guys have messed it up. And people need to start accepting this. We need to stop saying that the Jewish God is the... Do you think the Islamic God is the same God? When George Bush gets up and he says Allah is God. No, Islamic God is a different God. These are different people. Yes, in reality, it's the same idea. It's the one God. But the way religion has filtered it out, they're giving us different people. Yes, I don't know if I could make this clear. It's the same God up there. Look. Remember I did this with the coffee cup. Tuninchka desnas. Asiga desnas. Inka asiga desna. Irena semte inch kuinas marker. I ask her, what color is this? She's going to say white. It's a white marker because all she sees is this. I say, Sonic inch kuina, you're going to say blue. You're seeing this. It's the same thing. Okay?
That's why God sent His Son.
Exactly.
Okay, to correct all this misinterpretation of what God is.
Christianity is a new definition of what God is. Yes.
That's why He sent His Son to save us, but at the same time to teach us what God really is.
Look at this. The Old Testament, all those stories that you talk about. God taking people, putting them inside of whales and killing them and putting people up on the top of mountains.
Just to prove that He's God.
Do you see that in any of Jesus' teachings? You don't. It's completely different.
So basically, He's come to say us that, you know what, whatever you had that idea in the Old Testament is not right.
No. That's what Deadite is telling you.
No.
I don't want to put words in Jesus' mouth. I'm telling you, yes, that's what he believed. That's what he came down to tell you. But the way people are perceiving it, look, why do you have Old Testament and New Testament? Is there any reason why people read the Old Testament? Do you understand that the Jews, when Jesus was killed, that the Jewish people said, we reject him. Okay? I'm not going to say they killed him. They said, we reject him. Chenkuzet. Get him out. In fact, until today, you go into if you go to a synagogue, you go to a temple, you say, Jesus is Lord, what will they tell you? No, he's not. Does that mean they're bad people? No, it just means they don't accept them, okay? So why are we being crammed, why is their story being crammed down our throat? They've rejected it. But we have to read all of this. Why?
A lot of prophets and stuff that they talk about the coming of the Lord. So
Yeah.
you have to have some sort of context before.
You have to have it, and there is a context. You're right. You're right. But what I'm telling you is that if you start looking at these stories as literal stories, Cain and Abel, Hayran inche, Gayan yev chemkider, Achber John, okay? Gayan, how do you say it? Hayran of interest, Kasen. Gayan yev Abel, yeah. What's the story?
Brother kills a brother.
Patincher bab mutuna. Mekad astudzo mistavav, musa panjaraghendavav. Astvazasav misblave panjaraghenavade. Right? Urish inch pajarga. Give me any other reason in that story. Huh? That's it. Pas nachansi inch Ibrahim navadze. Mega mistavav. Hima antratarnak bidesenk, oh, astvaz masager marte. Che pusager. No, it has nothing to do with that. Bad motyunum nachansi masine. Okay? So we learn about jealousy. But and it's a beautiful story. Does that save me? Does that take me to heaven? No. Christ is the only way to heaven. But they're beautiful stories. Beautiful, beautiful stories. It teaches you about jealousy. Okay, let's learn about it. But these are not salvation stories. And that's what we need to think. The New Testament presents us with Christ, who is the center of the universe. Who is the Հովանես Ավետարանի ճիշտ սկիզբներ Աստված եւ Աստվածներ բան եւ բանը Աստվածներ բանն եւ բանը մարմին արավ, okay? So who is he talking about? Jesus Christ, who was from the beginning. And he's saying, I'm bringing you all around, I'm bringing you back to the beginning.
And the Old Testament is written in fear of God, which was in mythology, they feared the gods, okay? If you do something wrong, he strikes you dead. So I think it evolved into this, into the Old Testament, and basically it was through fear to control the people. That's why these examples were given.
Yeah. And we need to rise above it. Yeah, I'm at it. Look, last night I went to a Bible study at one of our churches. There were 60, 70 people in there, and they were studying Old Testament stories of Abraham and Chemkiderinch. And you're listening to all this, and these people are listening to it, and then I asked somebody, and what do you people do? Are you out there feeding the home? Bible links over them. Okay, how do you apply this to your life? Do you realize that today in Syria, they're thinking about killing people, innocent people? Does Jesus have something? What would Jesus do? What Chemki did? I don't know what he would do. Come on. It's very clear. Jesus is about love. What did Nerses Shnorali say? Seranun Jesus sirdim karegen jizme այդ սիրտս որ քարով լեցված է. What is Syria? Քարացած աշխարհ է ասի that needs Jesus to come and boom. Քարերը ջզմե. But instead we're saying Abraham-ը աստեղ եղած է. Մովսեսը մեզի 10 բադվիրաններ has gotten us into this problem right now. Jesus said 10 բադվիրանները հնազանդ եղեք, but there's one more better than that. Love one another. And love your enemies. That's not in the Ten Commandments. That's not in the Ten Commandments. That's Jesus. And if you get up and you say that, they'll say, oh, you can't say that. That's Christian. Why? You can say that. Jesus said that.
Well, you understand, for instance, southern states, I mean, they literally go to war with each other because the Ten Commandments isn't on their schools, their buildings, and this and that. And nowhere are they talking about love.
Yeah.
In fact, they hate the North just as much as they did during...
People are killing people in the name of God. This is my God, this is your God. What are you doing? And Jesus said, enough. Do you really think that today, bad people, they're Muslims? Jesus would say, yeah, they're bad, drop a bomb on them. Do you think he would say that? No. Those are his children too. The Syrians, the things.
When they go out, what they call? They put bomb on themselves to kill.
Suicide
bomb. You know, and the very first thing they say before they push on those buttons in the name of God.
Allah.
They say in the name of God and they kill people. I mean, how can you...
Healing. We need to heal the world. And there's only one way to salvation. Հոն կրված է. Ես եմ ճանապարհը, ճշմարտությունը եւ կյանքը ոչ ոք երթար հայր, եթե ոչ ինձ մե. It's in Karapar, I can't read that far. That's it. Yes եմ ճանապարհը. There's only one way. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Abraham and Sarah and Shem Kidenich. Ուրիշ չկա. Կամ պիտի հավատանք, կամ պիտի չհավատանք. Հիսուս եթե ասա, պիտի իբրև քրիստոնյա ես բարդականություն ունիմ հավատալու.
And for years, the Old Testament has been shoved down our throat by Hollywood. Okay? I mean, Easter time, what do they show on
Ten Commandments,
TBN, which is supposed to be a Christian station? Moses, the Ten Commandments.
Հարցում ունեք. Մենք դերևս մի քիչ դարբեր ցևով կարող ենք մոտենալ նույն հարցումին, ասելով որ թրախ գնալու բարական միայն Աստծո ցերկն է։ Այսինքն նույնիսկ Հիսուս ալգսը շատերը պիտի ասեն դեր պիտի ասեմ չջանցած ես։ Ուրեմն վերջի թադաստանը Աստուծո խնդիրն է։ Աստված պիտի որոշե, Աստված պիտի թադե։ Ոչ ես, ոչ տուն, բայց Հիսուսն է միակ ճանապարհը եւ մենք այսի ընդունում ենք։ Աստուծո գիտնալիքն է, այդ ձևով պետք է անել։ Մի մորնակ, որ ընդհանուր Սուրբ Քիրքի մեջ միայն մեկ հոգի արժանացավ արքայության, անալ քրիստոնյա չէր։ Խաչին վրա գողքը ավազագմը եւ միայն իրեն էր, որ ուղագի Հիսուսը ասավ այսօր թրախտի մեջ։ Եվ այդ մարդը քրիստոնյա չէր, ոչ էլ հետևորդ էր, ոչ էլ հավանաբար մգրդված չէր։ Բայց Հիսուս իր քտության Աստված քտությամբ է որ մեզ գտադե եւ գսե որ ասի իմ զավակս է Աստուծո գիտնալիքն է անոր համար քիչ մի ես կքաշվի մսելու թե ով պիտի երթա ով պիտի չերթա բայց համարցակ ցևով գսեմ որ միայն մեկ ճանապարհ կա ասի ինձ համար գաշխատի թե Աստված գուզե իրենց թադել ուրիշ համակարգով իր գիտնալիք է Աշխարհի մեծամասնությունը ոչ քրիստոնյա են։ Այդպես որ պետք է մտածենք, որ Աստված իր հասկացողության, որ մեր հասկացողությունն ավելի մեծ է, ինք պիտի թադե։ Թույլ տանք, որ Աստված է, այո։ Եվ մենք էլ մարդ կլինենք, Ուրիշ, I'm going to call it a night, okay? I've got one of our Bible study members, Lilo, her grandfather passed away. The Desaksutun is Sunday night, and funeral is Monday morning at Forest Lawn. This Sunday night at 5 o'clock, we're going to be at the diocese. There's going to be a presentation about landmine clearances, and I advise everybody, please let your friends know. It's going to be a great educational thing, and it's free. Attorney Mark Garagos will be speaking, and Gorma Khitarian will be playing, and it's a very important one to go to. Next week, Inchuning, the walk is on the 24th. We're going to be walking for domestic violence. We start from here, and we go to St. Leon Cathedral, beginning at 4:30. We have to be here, okay? 4 o'clock. I saw television of Chorsu guess, that's okay. But I guess Champanga, yeah, Chorsu guess. Jami innin, Aravodian Jami innin. As Forest Lana, but Desaksutun Kisher, Giragi Kisher, Nuin Forest Lana, yeah. Yes, but they can't head over the listeners. Anything else? Ayo, Rame. Rametzen, yeah. Do you know this is Evolve? Do you know where this is from? Amtrak. Շատ քեղեցիկ արտահայտություն էր ասել. This is perfect. Beautiful.
This Bible is all in Arabic in front of me.
Yeah. You're getting this, right? Եվ ըստ հայ եկեղեցու, yeah. Համաձայն 100%։ Սերանուն, սիրով պետք է հաղթենք։ Եվ Հիսուսի խոսքը, որ սերը ավելի որ չարը, նայեցեք, երեք բան կա կյանքի մեջ, գա սատանայականը, ան որ փարին թեմը չար գտա սատանան է։ Փարին թեմ փարի դալը կամ չարին թեմը չար դալ մարդկային է, բայց չարին թեմը սեր դալ աստվածային է։ Եվ Հիսուս մեզի գհրավիրե որ ասենք, ուրիշ բան չկա, yeah. Ադ աստվածայինը եթե գուզեք հասկանալ Աստծո ջամփան, այդ սիրո ջամփան է։ Չարին թեմ սեր դալ։ Դժվար է։ Yeah, it's a hard game, yeah. Ինչ որ աղոթքով վերջացնենք, thank you very much. Անհոր եւ որդու եւ ոգին սրբո, ամեն։ Բահաբանը մնայնի Քրիստոս աչ քո հովանի լիցի վերայիմ, իդվեևի քիշերի նստիլի դան իքնալի ջանաբար ինընչալի վեանել։ Զիմեր պեքսասնեցայց եւ ողորմյակոար ռաձոց եւ ինձ բազոմերիցս։